back to my channel. I know it's been a minute since I posted a video. I had big plans for posting regularly about my experience here in New Zealand on a working holiday visa from the US, but life had other ideas. It's been a bit of a challenging few months since I arrived at the start of November. It's now the beginning of March as I'm filming this from Whakatu, also known as Nelson, sunny Nelson at the very top of the South Island. So yeah, I have a lot to catch you guys up on, so let's get into it. As some of you might know, I flew from the US to Auckland and I spent about a week there. I rented an Airbnb for that week that was, I think it averaged out to like $35 a night and included breakfast, which was super awesome. I met some really great people. I got to explore the city of Auckland as well as some of the beaches and things in the area. And it was a nice way to just kind of settle and ground before I kind of dove into things. That was also the only thing I really had planned. So the only thing that I booked ahead of time from the US before coming to New Zealand was that week-long stay in the Airbnb. I had no plan for what I would do when I arrived. I actually ended up scrambling a little bit trying to figure out the bus system, and it was definitely a learning moment. But yeah, so from there I decided to just get a flight from Auckland to Christchurch. Those flights were pretty cheap, and I figured I would kind of start my South Island adventure from there. From what I had heard about New Zealand and the two islands, it sounded like the South Island was a little bit more my speed, being a bit less populated, a bit more rugged as far as the terrain goes. It just sounded a little bit more up my alley, so I decided to kick off my year in New Zealand down on the South Island. When I was in Auckland, I started looking for jobs. Part of my plan here, I brought a little bit of savings, but honestly I didn't, since this was a bit of a last minute life decision, I didn't have a whole lot of savings to work off of, and I kind of knew going in that I'd be taking some jobs, hopefully with housing, and kind of moving around place to place. Maybe taking some time off in between to travel, but mostly finding places to kind of settle down, really get to know the area while working a job. And so one of the places that I applied was for a lodge in Franz Josef, Waiau, down on the west coast of the South Island. And it sounded like a dream, and of course, as these things go, it turned out to be an absolute nightmare. But initially it worked out because the owner was actually in Auckland at the time on some business meeting or something. So I was able to meet with him and his wife face to face. They were super kind and really it seemed like a really good fit for me. So I flew to Christchurch, and my future boss that I had met in Auckland actually put me up in a motel that he owned there as well. The idea was that I would work a couple of training shifts with the lead housekeeper there so I could learn how to do housekeeping. It's not something that I had ever done before. And so I did that and yeah, worked a few shifts and helped out less than once a week for a couple of hours in exchange for staying in this room for free for about 3 weeks. So it was a really sweet deal for me, and also just kind of solidified that these were good, well-intentioned people that were willing to help me out until I could get out to Franz Josef. While I was in Christchurch, I wanted to buy a car. I figured, doing some research into New Zealand before coming out here, it seemed like the bus system was pretty good. I had heard of lots of backpackers who easily, either took buses or hitchhiked, things like that, and I figured I could make that work just fine for me. But when I got here and looked into it more, I realized that the inner city bus system was down. They had completely closed a lot of the routes that would have helped me get out to that side of the island from Christchurch. And so I started looking into buying a car and found that the process is actually pretty simple here. It's not difficult to buy a car as a foreigner, and I started looking around and found this sweet 1999 Nissan Tino that was, I ended up buying it for 2,000 New Zealand dollars, which is like 1,200 US, so not bad at all. Took it for a test drive, had a look at things, I thought it looked great, and yeah, Tino carried us around for an awesome road trip around the South Island. He was a champ. We love Tino and our sweet boy, but he's no longer with us. So it turned out that Tino actually had a lot wrong with him, and since I didn't really do my due diligence beyond test driving and looking at the car myself, I should have taken it to a mechanic and gotten kind of somebody who knows what they're doing and looking for to have a look over, because they would have told me immediately just how much work he needed. So I ended up, long story short, I sold Tino after about 2 months of driving him around to a junk car buyer who basically said it's not worth the $2,000 plus that it would take to fix him, and we're just gonna junk it. Here's $350. So that was a bit of a hard blow. I was expecting to, first of all, be able to keep driving Tino for my full year here. He wasn't going to pass the warrant of fitness that was up in March, so that went out the window. And also I was hoping to be able to sell him for a little bit closer to that original $2,000 that I paid. But as my partner put a little positive spin on it, I essentially rented a car for 2-ish months for about $1,700 New Zealand, so not a bad deal when you think about it that way. We got a couple of really great road trips out of them. He took me, all kinds of great places around the South Island, so I'm not too mad about it. So after a few weeks in Christchurch, which I really enjoyed, by the way, Christchurch is a super fun little city. There's great beaches around, there's great hiking. It's a nice kind of small place. It still has some good options. There's a really great vegan cafe that I loved. And also everyone has these beautiful gardens, so I would go on walks every day and just see all these flowers and all kinds of plants I'd never seen before, and it was a really lovely time. So yeah, I spent about 3 weeks there until it was time for my start date at the job. And I left with about, I think it was about a week time that we spent. My partner Leo came along with me, so he and I met in Christchurch, and we took this awesome road trip together, looping down around the South Island, pretty much to the very southern tip. We got a nice blast of that Antarctic wind on us. It was really cold camping down there. And then we made our way up north through Invercargill and all that, and eventually landed in Franz Josef. So that is where my job was, and the idea was that I would work there for around 3 months, kind of do the one of the busier seasons there. They provided free accommodation, or I'm sorry, not free. It was a little bit deducted from my pay, but still pretty reasonable price. And I was also hired as a casual worker. So if you're coming to New Zealand on a working holiday visa, something that you'll probably encounter doing picking jobs, even hospitality work, you'll probably be hired as a casual worker. So do your research on this. Make sure that this is the right contract for you. In my situation, the conversations that I had with my boss before I started the job made it sound like things would be pretty flexible. They only wanted me for 20 to 30 hours a week. I'd have plenty of time off to go on hikes and explore the area. It all sounded great. When I got there, they kind of just shoved me into a management role, and it was very just like, you're on your own. It's you and 3 18-year-old German kids who are gonna end up being a terror to you. Good luck, see ya. I guess the main takeaways for me were learning what a casual contract means, knowing that you should be able to turn down shifts if you don't want them. You should not have managerial responsibilities if that's not outlined in your contract. There were a lot of things that were not explained to me, and I think it was a situation of this employer taking advantage of foreign workers, people like me and like the Germans that I worked with who don't know the employment laws here. Luckily for me, my partner is a Kiwi, and he spotted all of this and was like, hey, this isn't okay, this is not how this is supposed to work. He actually ended up coming out and helping me get through the Christmas and the New Year holiday there, which was kind of fun, kind of crazy. And pretty soon we decided that we just needed to quit and get out, cut our losses and get out of there. This is unusual for me. I don't normally just quit jobs and leave, but this was a pretty extreme scenario of I had worked 4 weeks in a row without a day off. Super stressful. I was working 54 hours a week and just absolutely getting my butt kicked and no support from my employer, so we decided to just pack our things up and go. And by that point my partner had purchased a van, who we lovingly call Regi. So yeah, we packed everything into the van and hit the road without really a plan. We spent a little bit of time kind of working up the rest of the West Coast a little, and then making our way across Arthur's Pass and back to Christchurch. Regi ended up having a few issues as well, some solar panel problems, electrical things like that we needed to get fixed, so we went back to Christchurch where we could get all of that done and kind of figure out what was next for us. By this point I was realizing that my funds were running pretty low, given that I was expecting to work that job for several months, and I spent, I think it was about a month there. That definitely impacted things, and then the loss of my car, Tino, that impacted things. And on top of all of this, my health really started to take a turn. I won't get into all of the details, but yeah, I ended up having a lot of health issues and having a little bit of trouble getting care here, partially just not really understanding how the system works, as well as my insurance company takes about 8 weeks to respond to an email. So that has made it really tricky to figure out, are you guys going to cover this thing or not? Because how it works is that I have to pay up front and then they reimburse me. And with that 8-week gap of not knowing, I can't really budget for that personally, so that's kind of informed some things and made things challenging. But what we ended up doing was we decided to head towards the Nelson Golden Bay area, partially for the weather. We wanted some nice sunny weather after being on the rainy west coast for a little bit. Also, Regi was leaking, so that was a bonus. I started looking into Workaways, and I found one in the Machueka Valley area that was looking for gardening help and also happened to be a yoga and meditation retreat center. And for both of us, that sounded like a really incredible opportunity to get to sort of rejuvenate and reset after a challenging work experience and, you know, headaches with the van, all of these things. It seemed like, okay, this is a chance to kind of settle for a little bit, have a really nice experience. And if you don't know about Workaway, it's a really great way to travel. Most hosts will provide free accommodation. Usually also at least some of your meals are covered with that as well. You can find all kinds of different work. A lot of it does have to do with like farming and physical labor, but there's also people that are looking for help with childcare, or they need help with their social media marketing, or all kinds of different things. There's a ton of opportunities out there, and it's all over the world. And the membership fee is really cheap, so I definitely suggest looking into that if you are trying to live some kind of nomadic lifestyle on a budget. It's a really great way to do it. But unfortunately this place did not turn out the way we expected. Our values didn't quite align with the hosts, and it ended up being a bit of a stressful situation, so we left again a bit sooner than we expected and found ourselves at a campsite in Nelson wondering what the heck to do. So I decided to get a job in Nelson, and I applied at a bunch of places and ended up walking into a motel that was hiring cleaners, and I got hired on the spot and started the next day. So that was good for me to be able to start working immediately and jumping in there. This situation has been much better than the last so far. My boss has been really nice. The work is physically demanding, and that's been hard given my medical issues that I've been having, but yeah, we're getting through it. And I also ended up picking up a second job at a Thai restaurant that we had actually eaten at our first day in Nelson, and really, really loved it. The food was amazing, and it's a really cute spot right on the water. So yeah, I ended up working there as well, which is fun. So after a couple of weeks of living in the van at this campsite that we kind of snuck into for free most nights, we did that for a couple of weeks, and I was getting a bit grumpy about things, and some of it was that I was having all these health issues that were impacting my daily life, but I was also struggling a bit with doing van life while also working this job. The commute, the getting up early in the cold, and you know, all of these little things that kind of add up when life is throwing a lot of challenges at you. And we started looking around for rooms to rent. So we found a room in a house with, it's just one other woman who lives here who owns the place that we rent from, and she's gone most of the time, so it has worked out really nicely for us. It's a great little house. There's a cat here named Hugo who has been napping on the couch outside all day today, living his best life. It's given me the opportunity to kind of settle into a healthier daily routine. I get up every day and I do a little bit of yoga and usually a little bit of meditation, and that's been really important for me, just to kind of keep my mental health, my spirituality, all of those things kind of in a healthier place than they were before. And so what's next? I don't really know. If you guys know me at all, you know that I usually don't have a plan. That is influenced now that I do have a partner that I'm living with and traveling with. We do want to see as much as we can in the time that we have together here for the rest of the year until I have to leave before the start of November. So the clock is ticking a little bit, but at the same time I know that we've got plenty of time, and to me what's important right now is that we're taking care of ourselves, and I think this has been a really nice opportunity to just settle a little bit. I've been on the road for almost 2 years now, kind of moving from place to place, either really frequently or as slowly as every few months, which is still pretty frequently compared to most people. And honestly, I'm getting a little bit weary. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to live in this place for a little while. We've been here, I think, for just over a month now. And, you know, we start to see some familiar faces around. We've been going to the farmers markets, and we've got this nice list of things to do in the area that we're slowly ticking off on my days off of work, and it's been really nice to just take our time and know that the time is there, that we don't have to pack all this stuff in, but you know, we can do daily life things, but also, you know, a few days ago we drove about an hour and a half away to camp just for one night and went kayaking, and that was super awesome, really fun, and just a cheap little short getaway. So yeah, we're gonna stay here probably for a while. The debate right now is, do we look for something in the North Island to go and work at and hopefully have accommodation covered and things like that again, or do we spend the winter here? Lots of pros and cons to each side. Another thing that kind of threw a wrench in the plans is that originally we were only going to spend about a month or two in the Whakatu area, and then the plan was to go to the North Island, but some of you may have heard about the cyclone that hit the North Island. That's been quite devastating, honestly. There's been all kinds of things that have come from that. Food supply has been impacted, and roads and all these things, so that's influenced our decision a bit to maybe just stay here for a little while. So yeah, I don't know, we'll see. I think that catches you up on my time in New Zealand so far. I am open to hearing from you guys about what questions you might have. I was considering maybe doing a video more detailed about my work experience in Franz Josef, what went wrong there, you know, what I learned from that, what you can learn from that if you're coming here to work. Also maybe talking about the buying the car thing in a little bit more detail, but just let me know. Let me know what questions you might have. If you're coming to New Zealand, I'd love to try and help you plan a little bit. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing and supporting me on my traveling journey. Also, if you don't know, I've got a website, ldancer.com. I've been posting my photography there that I've been doing since I've been here, as well as my blogs. That's a lot more consistent than my videos, so if you're wanting to hear a little bit more in-depth on what I've been up to, check that out, and yeah, catch you next time.